Hello, my name is Brian Crittenden, and for my topic, I chose rigor mortis. To me, this stage in the postmortem is the more fascinating just because of why rigor sets in and how sometimes, in most cases, it will reverse it if the embalmer hasn't already. Um, if you've worked in a funeral home, you have seen your fair share of rigor setting in on our decedents, and sometimes it can be intense to say the least. Sometimes you do the removals and then you're like, wow, with all due respect, were you playing Twister whenever this traumatic event occurred? And some other times you just question your own life and your own decisions. But anyways, let's begin. I know what you are all thinking. Who is this gentleman on my screen right now? Well, the gentleman that you're looking at right now is Mr. Pierre Hubert Nystine. This gentleman discovered rigor mortis in 1811. Nystine was a French physiologist and pediatrician. And how did he discover rigor mortis? It's quite fascinating. Now, Nystine discovered rigor mortis by examining the bodies of criminals that were executed by the guillotine. Whenever he had examined these bodies, he discovered that the jaw would tighten up, followed by the stiffening of the limbs. This discovery would be known as Nystine's law. This is Thomas Kromprecher. Thomas was a forensic doctor who further explored Nystine's law. He explored Nystine's law by comparing rigor in rats. He studied the differences between the front and hind limbs. His experiment showed the world that while overall time of rigor was consistent, however, rigor and relaxation of the muscles were more rapid in the smaller, less muscular front limbs. And then later on, Kobayashi and associates would further study rigor. They studied rigor by examining rats through the postmortem process. And through their experiments, they concluded that temperature, joint dynamics, and fiber composition determine the speed of rigor, rather than the volume of muscle alone. This is considered a breakthrough in the study of rigor mortis. I've covered the history of rigor mortis and who discovered it and all the experiments that were conducted to help us know what we know today about this postmortem process. But what I haven't covered is what is rigor mortis? And you may have some questions right now that I haven't answered yet, such as how long does rigor set? When does it start? What is it? Well, I'm going to tell you what it is. Now, rigor mortis is a chemical change, and it is caused by the depletion of ATP production paired with the increase of lactic acid from anaerobic respiration, which leads to muscle contraction without the relaxation of muscles. And ATP, it helps relax the muscles when they contract. Now, when you're alive, ATP is produced by breathing and food consumption. And when the decedent is no longer on this plane of existence with us, they're not going to consume any more food, they're not going to be breathing, so with that being said, they're not going to produce any more ATP. And once the body runs out of ATP, it cannot, relax the muscles, and it stays contracted, and that's what you see in this picture right here. And rigor will start to be noticeable in the smaller muscles and work its way down to the larger ones. And rigor, it sets in within 2 hours of death, and it reaches its peak at 12 hours. And rigor, which is really fascinating, it will reverse itself within 24 to 48 hours. And this picture you see right here of this gentleman, a little fun fact for you. Now, if you come across a decedent that their hands are bent like that, you don't have to work the fingers out as some of you may have been taught. There's another method you could do that's less prone to breaking the fingers, and we don't want that. So what you do is, you see the wrist, if you just work it up like this and massage that, the fingers will start to come up like that without you having to pry them. And you don't, like I said, if you've had to work rigor out of the hands before, and that's one of the things that you worry about the most is breaking the fingers, and you don't want that. Trust me. Now, these two pictures are complete opposite. You got your cooler, which we all know what it is. We've been in one before. If you haven't, you will be pretty soon. Not like that, but hopefully by working in a funeral home and not being one of our decedents. But anyways, back to the slides. Now, on the left, we have a gentleman right there, and he's obviously in a hot room, and he's sweating quite profusely. And so, with that being said, you got your cool room on your right, and you got your really warm room on the left. And the environment which the decedent is in can cause rigor to accelerate or even decrease. Now, if your decedent is in the left in that room right there where it's super hot, that heat's gonna make rigor set in quicker than expected. But if the body is in a cool environment, such as that nice cooler right there, it can actually slow down rigor mortis because it's not so hot like the picture on the left. There's a few other factors that come into play with rigor mortis, and one of the biggest ones is the cause of death. There's pre-existing fitness levels, drug use, infection, and pre-mortem ATP availability. And the cause of death, I've experienced that doing removals. There was a gentleman that passed away in his recliner, and he had a heart attack, and he sat for close to 12 hours. And rigor is fully set in at this point, if not about to be fully set in when we get to him. And he fell out of his recliner, and he was somehow respectfully in a frog position, and we had to work that rigor out before we even thought about putting him on the cot. And sometimes you run into those issues, and those factors can come into play. Pre-existing fitness levels, like if, for example, you don't have much muscle tone in your body, your arms, your limbs, you won't have much rigor mortis because there's not much muscle in there. Drug use can cause rigor mortis to have issues such as infections too, and ATP availability. Now, if you're having problem producing ATP whenever you're alive, chances are, you're not going to have a good outcome whenever you're gone because you didn't have much ATP in your system. And so that could intensify rigor and make, the time, half the average time. Here's some helpful tips to help fight rigor, and we're all a team, and these are some of the things that I've been taught by my embalmers that I've worked under. Deep massage in the limbs, they go a long way. Now, massaging the fingers, you definitely need to do that, and if you get consent from the next of kin to embalm as soon as you can. If the pickup is at 2 and you get authorization on the scene, go back to the funeral home and take care of business because it'll help you in the long run. And also, if you can't embalm as soon as possible, store the decedent in the cooler before embalming. That'll help slow down rigor. But yeah, those are my tips. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching. all of this wouldn't be possible without the help of my sources, which are listed right there on the screen. I hope you learned some interesting facts about rigor mortis. I hope I was able to give you some tips out there on the field that I've learned in my short time out here in the funeral world. I hope to learn some interesting facts about all the topics that y'all covered in y'all's presentations. And thank you again for watching.